Hi, so this is going to be episode one, or the pilot episode for my podcast, Try. I'm Yoni, and I wanted to kind of take this episode to just do a little pilot and kind of give an introduction of what I hope to get out of this podcast, what my vision for it is, and kind of like my motivation and inspiration for doing so. I definitely have been sitting on this idea for a while. I definitely have told a lot of people within the last couple months that, oh, I'm going to start this podcast, but didn't really do it. So I finally just decided to stop speaking and just actually do it. But a little bit more about me. I'm Yoni. I'm a second year grad student at Johns Hopkins studying clinical mental health counseling in the hopes that I one day become a therapist. And I think another big part of my identity is me being Ethiopian. I was born in Ethiopia before I immigrated to the United States in 2005. And for most of my life, I have lived in Chicago, but I currently go to school in Baltimore, so definitely a bit of a distance away from home. I think my main motivation behind starting this podcast was to kind of challenge myself in the sense to put myself out there and just use my voice to kind of speak more about things that maybe I want to, maybe things that I find important, and kind of just to share my own story. And I think that my main motivation was kind of also to just have conversations, some of them being about mental health and therapy. And I think for myself that my decision to go into counseling was spurred on by my own experiences in therapy. It wasn't really anything that I had grown up with or something that I knew about. I kind of just was going through a rough patch in my life about 2 years ago, and I made the decision to go to therapy. And I think that that was honestly one of the best decisions that I've made, and it's definitely the reason why I am where I am today. Making that decision was definitely something that I contemplated for a while because with my own background, and especially being an immigrant, but also being Habesha, mental health and therapy aren't really things that are talked about. So I kind of had to take a step on my own and do the research myself in order to get what I needed. And I think that kind of ties into why I do it now, because I feel like we definitely need to kind of talk about it more as a topic and a subject, and I'm kind of hoping that me being able to at least become more educated on the subject or at least figure it out myself can help me to possibly give back and kind of help to raise awareness or shed more light on certain topics that just aren't talked about. Another thing that another thing that motivated me to really start this podcast and start recording was one of my uncles recently. He wrote a book, I believe it's called The Courage to Cross Horizons, and he had written it, and it's pretty much an autobiography of his life, and it talks about his background and his family growing up back home in Ethiopia, and pretty much when he immigrated to the U.S. and everything that has happened since then, his family, wife, everything, work. And it kind of really interested me because I kind of just saw it lying around at the house one day. And I was like, oh, let me just take a read, like look at it. It was really interesting. But what I took away from it was that he definitely did have an interesting story. And I think in the grand scheme of things that everybody has a story to tell and a story to share that is unique to them and themselves. But it kind of forced me to really look at myself more and kind of think about my own story, which I've grown to kind of love and become proud of. And I thought that maybe this podcast could be a way that I kind of share my own story, share stories about others who may come on here as guests, but kind of provide myself with a platform to express myself in a way that I would like to. I think the fear of perception is something that weighs heavily on a lot of people's minds. I know it's definitely weighed on mine, and I think I've kind of just made the decision to be in control of that perception, not in the sense that control what other people think of me, but more so have control over what I allow you to perceive or what image you have of me, at least being able to control what it is you see. And so I kind of wanted to use this as a platform to share experiences, anecdotes in life, whether that's things that I've experienced or things that other people have, and kind of being able to, like I said, raise awareness and have conversations on things that people don't speak on as much. Just being able to raise awareness, and I like the concept of having conversations because it allows you to just speak and have an open dialogue without necessarily speaking from a place of authority or being an expert in a sense and just giving advice. But I think it'll allow me to kind of just provide my own experiences and allowing people to even reflect on their own experiences and see however they might want to move forward or what they'd like to take away from those experiences. Because I feel that at the end of the day, the person that knows you best is yourself, although you may not always recognize it or realize it. And I know for me, therapy kind of helped me to look at myself more deeply and introspect and be able to kind of recognize parts of my character and personality that I maybe was not completely aware of. So that's another side goal I have for anybody that's listening, just being able to kind of just view yourself more, gain an awareness of yourself and who you are. And I feel like that insight that you gain can kind of help in life and just being able to know yourself better. As for the topics and subjects, I do have a document somewhere with a list of things that I'd like to go over eventually, but I also would like to get feedback in a sense, not just for subjects and topics that people want to hear about, but kind of just feedback on me and how the podcast listens, how it goes for people, just to kind of be able to improve myself and kind of get better at this in a sense and make it more enjoyable. Let's see. And like I said, I wanted it to be a more open space for people to listen and reflect. I think that this podcast has the potential to be good, but I do recognize that that can only happen, or it's dependent on me as an individual, and it's more so what I get in, or what I put in is what I get out of it. So it'll require me to be a bit more consistent and more disciplined on if I really want to grow this and for it to be as great as I think it can be. And with that, it's more so of the mindset of progress, not perfection, because I've definitely been somebody who has, in the past, focused a lot more on being perfect or being the best, especially in school and some other settings. But as I've grown older, I've realized that progress is progress at the end of the day, and that perfection often can seem so distant, which kind of forces people to really get into the mindset of wanting to be perfect. But that can also be very detrimental because sometimes you don't realize how much being perfect means to you, especially if maybe you never achieved perfection. So I've adopted the mindset of just taking a step in the right direction, no matter how long that takes. I've kind of abandoned perfection as an ideal, as a goal, and kind of just focus more on growth and progress. And one of the things that I wanted to say before is that I am still a counselor in training, so I'm not licensed, I'm not accredited, and I kind of wanted to say that because this is not meant to be a place where I diagnose people, fix people, this and that. I'm more so using this to encourage reflection. And I have no licenses, no accreditations, so this is not professional advice for anybody listening. I'm just here to get on this microphone and speak, share my thoughts. Hopefully they resonate with you. If not, that's fine too. But yeah, this was episode 1, or pilot. I will have another episode coming out that I will drop. Hopefully, I'll have some more guests on there so you guys just don't have to listen to my voice the whole time. But this was the intro, the pilot. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I will be back when I'm back.